Hello and welcome to Unacademy, the one-stop solution for an English medium UPSC Civil Services aspirant. Today, as part of a Hindu analysis, we'll be taking 4 to 5 important articles out of the Sunday newspaper, Delhi edition. Now, as a Sunday newspaper, there's no editorial, but we had certain interesting articles related to GS Paper 3, Science and Technology, and a very interesting article related to RAW. Now, before we start our discussion, there are three very important announcements for you. One, a very important surprise, which is that you already know that under Manzil 2024, where we celebrated our toppers, we are running a very important price drop, which is historically the least we have gone, which is at 24,999 at only 54 rupees per day. A 15 months course is available to you. So if you do want to become a part of Unacademy, this is the right time to join our family. And with regards to affordability, with regards to any issue where you considered Unacademy but found the fees a little bit high, you have the option to take the course at the historically lowest price. After this, the surprise for you is that today at 7:30, we have a marathon by Sarmad Sir with regards to polity. This is going to be an proper 4 to 5 hour marathon in which Sarmad Sir is going to discuss all issues related to polity relevant for the prelims examination 2024. And more than that, he will be covering static, current affairs, everything. And this should have been a current affairs based Conquer Prelims session, but we've transformed it into a marathon session so that we could discuss the last set of current affairs also, but static for you on the platform itself. So if you haven't still subscribed to our channel, if you haven't become a part of our family on YouTube, do like, share and subscribe to the channel right now so that you don't miss this session. Before this session at 6, I'll be taking the third session for history static under Conquer Prelims Phase 1, which is happening on the Unacademy platform itself as part of the special sessions. All the links to all these sessions are given in the description box. If you still can't find it, just join our Telegram channel so that you can just go there and click on the links which are provided just before the sessions. If there's still an issue, you can always reach out to us in the comment section. So with this, we can now move to the topics we are going to cover. And we have 5 very interesting ones. First, related to what are called as the Starliner program or the Boeing crewed space test, which is happening. So this crew-based space liner, which is now going to be launched on 7th, is going to be very significant. But there's a lot of backstory to this. Thereafter, we have RAW and a lot of different overseas operations which have come into question. Then we have the avian variety, which is bird flu, being in the news now after week. We have certain new findings with regards to this. The last two, one, a logistical agreement, which is being chalked out between India and the UK, and leprosy, and a very interesting science article on how archaeology has given us a new insight into leprosy and red squirrels being very, very interestingly attached to that story. This tells you the importance of history, archaeology, how it can change our understanding. And there's a very interesting archaeological site which has yielded a lot of things in the UK. We'll discuss that also. So we have 5 very interesting articles lined up for you. Again, as always, I will give you the basic picture, then I'll give you the larger argument, and then we can revise before we end the session. So with this, let's start with the Boeing Starliner program. So the name of this program is after this capsule, which is called Starliner. And the Starliner program is the attempt by NASA to find an alternative to, say, SpaceX and the Russians in that regard, Soyuz rocket, which is used. But there's a lot of backstory to this, which is quite interesting and important for you generally. Now, the context for this article is that on 7th May, which is the same day on which our discount is also going to end, on 7th May, the Atlas 5 rocket is going to take 2 very important veterans, which is Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore, into the atmosphere, then into the low Earth orbit, then dock into the ISS, and thereafter land back on the Earth's surface in New Mexico. Now, all of this is going to happen as part of the Starliner testing. This is still a testing program because this will only be docked for at least 48 hours, though the original plan is to dock it for at least 7 to 8 hours. The concept is very, very simple, that as of right now, if we don't take this into the picture, if a astronaut wants to go into the International Space Station, the ISS, they have only two options. Previously, before 2019, before 2015, there used to be only one option, which is the Russian rocket, which is called the Soyuz rocket, mostly launched from the Kazakhstan sector, and therefore this was the only option available for a very, very long time. After in 2011, NASA stopped it, what is called a space shuttle program. So in 2011, the NASA stopped its space shuttle program, and therefore it used to borrow the Russians and the Russian rocket to basically transport anybody into the ISS. Thereafter, we got the second alternative, which is called the Dragon space module or capsule, which is developed by SpaceX. And this has now become 13 times it has been used as a very reliable form of transporting material, transporting any form of what we call as important raw material over and above that astronauts to and from the ISS. Now, an alternative to this is this, which is called the Starliner program of Boeing. Now, the Starliner program, the original plan or the plan which was proposed in 2014 but has now been delayed 10 years forward, is to take 4 astronauts in this capsule and thereafter having a crew module, which is this one. It also has a service module which goes with it, and it is going to be a reusable capsule which is going to be developed by Boeing and will use the Atlas V rocket. Now, when we talk about the Atlas V rocket itself, the Atlas V rocket is not a NASA commissioned rocket. It is rather a rocket which has been developed in a joint venture by Lockheed Martin and Boeing. So this is not a government commissioned what we call as rocket, but it is a Lockheed Martin and Boeing joint venture through which Atlas V rocket has been developed. Now, what has been done is that Atlas V is actually made for satellites. It's actually made for satellites. Now, it has been retrofitted to now have a certain configuration in which it can take this module into space. So, the blue regions which you see are the new additions which have been done to Atlas V, and anything which you see in gray is basically already there. So, there are 3 to 4 major additions which have been done. Now, other than the satellite, you have the Starliner, CST-100 Starliner. This will have a crew and a service module. Service module cannot be used again, but the crew module will be reused. Thereafter, they've changed the emergency detection system because in a satellite, there is no human life involved. But here they have to make sure that the connection between the Starliner and the Atlas V rocket is very secure. That is why they're changing the skirting also, so that there's a better connection. And last but not the least, they're giving one more engine to it so that it can be given the last impulse to go into the orbit vis-a-vis getting connected to the ISS, docking into the ISS in that regard. This is basically the module which is now going to be launched on 7th. Now, if successful, this is going to be very important. Why it is going to be important? Because this used to be the only way to go to the ISS, which is the Soyuz rocket of the Russians. This was later triumphed by Atlas V, Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Before this, you only had Dragon. Before Dragon, you had the Soyuz rocket itself. But if this whole program goes as per what we call as plan with testing, NASA will become the first organization or space organization in the world to have 2 what we call as astronaut transporting capsules. So as of right now, Russia have their own. DragonX is using, or what we call as Dragon module, or the SpaceX is using having one, but NASA has commissioned both of them. So if the Boeing module Starliner program actually works properly, then they will be the only nation in the world to have 2 modules, an alternative, and they have also tendered that there will be basically consecutive launches. One Boeing, one SpaceX, one Boeing, one SpaceX, Starliner, Dragon, Starliner, Dragon. And this is going to be very, very important that is. This all seems to be very, very perfectly fine. All is good. It's a very important concept itself. Very good. Now, why is there a lot of controversy and a lot of questions behind it? Because of this name which is there on this module, which is Boeing. Now, Boeing itself has been in a lot of controversy. Now, before I go into the second aspect, I want to first reiterate what I've said. Remember, for the prelims examination, Starliner is a Boeing-based capsule, reusable capsule. However, the service module of this reusable capsule, which will have all the oxygen and all the different life support systems, is not reusable. If it goes into the orbit, it will be detached later, and the Starliner will come back through what we call as, it has the capability of re-entering into the atmosphere itself. The concept is very, very simple. This is going to be the alternative to the Dragon module, which is the SpaceX module in that regard. And there will be now three ways to reach the ISS, which is the Soyuz rocket, the Starliner, once it is commissioned, and thereafter the Dragon, or what we call as SpaceX module in that regard. Now, generally, this will be very significant because America will become the first country to have two modules which can help it to go into the ISS and into the orbit itself, which is astronauts being transported to and fro from the ISS itself. And this has seen considerable delays. It should have been commissioned by 2015. COVID-19 pushed it back. And over and above that, it has been, since its inception, gone over budget also. That brings us this Boeing connection and this Boeing problem. Now, we all know that Boeing has been in the news for all wrong reasons. All of the wrong reasons, from the 737 MAX 8 MCAS system leading to two major air crashes, to recently certain bolts not being properly tied up into the emergency, what we call as gate or emergency window of the Boeing itself, which in turn led to three different airliners taking emergency landing in America because of the faulty bolt in that regard. Boeing, for the past 10 to 15 years, has been in a lot of crises with regards to money. Its CEO has changed twice. And when it comes to safety and Boeing, there's a lot of questions which are coming through. Now, when we talk about Starliner itself, it was initially itself delayed. However, now people are questioning that, does Boeing have the capability and the specialization? Atlas V is Lockheed Martin plus Boeing, wherein the engines are coming from Lockheed Martin. That is why people are more what we call as reliant and still trust the Atlas V rocket itself. But this capsule has been independently developed by Boeing. Now the question is, with atmospheric re-entry, which could lead to a lot of stress on the module itself, there's a lot of questions which are coming in, that is Boeing literally capable of doing something like this and making sure that veterans such as Sunita Williams are not threatened in the process of going to the ISS and coming back. And with multiple reports coming through, two whistleblowers of the Boeing company itself being dead, one through a certain lung infection and second through a gunshot, there are questions that, is Boeing really ready to do something like this? Now, for you, there's only one aspect to this whole topic, which is the Starliner aspect, the NASA aspect, the prelims aspect of getting this terminology itself. But there's also one more aspect which becomes important vis-a-vis mains, which is that once a company gets associated with certain concepts, certain issues which are there, now how can you trust, for example, a company which is not able to properly manage airlines, and its most important product being the 737, the 787. It is a very, very important, very old, even related to the Second World War, Boeing engines used in most of the what we call as US aircraft at that point of time. It is a very significant company, but its merger with its rival, along with the way it has been conducting its security checks, has created a lot of questions. And now the question is that, will this launch be successful? Will be able to get, because all other tests before this were unmanned, and in the first test itself it had missed the orbit because of a technical glitch. In the second one, there was a certain glitch with regards to the docking system itself. Third one was successful. This is the fourth one with astronauts now, and with astronauts involved, can we trust Boeing? And that is the question. And that is a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion is happening in America as of right now, that Boeing, if it is able to pull it off, maybe we'll be able to salvage its position and its image. But as of right now, Boeing and safety are not going together. A lot of Indians today, when we basically even book our aircrafts or any flight, we check what is the equipment. If it's an Airbus, we are still very, very comfortable in using that. If it's a Boeing, there are multiple questions. Whole fleet after fleet in America with regards to United Airlines, a lot of different airlines have grounded over the issue of a single bolt. And these are very simple things. If they can jeopardize 189 people, then anything can happen with regards to two people, two astronauts going into the ISS. But here the difficult task is not exit of the atmosphere, but the re-entry. Because re-entry, you need a very good capsule which can take the heat on its what we call as base. Because on re-entry, there will be a lot of friction which will happen, which will in turn lead to it becoming like a fireball. And therefore, all of these different vents along with the capsule itself has to hold through that re-entry phase. And this can be done easily because of the fact that Boeing and Atlas and Lockheed Martin are working together. But again, there's a question on this skirting. Because they're modifying an existing rocket, there's also questions that will this modification actually work in separation stage and later docking stage in that regard. So there are multiple questions which are there for 7th of May. And let us see if we are going to be discussing this in positive or negative light once this happens on Monday and Tuesday. So for this, for right now, just concentrate on the fact that what is the terminology, concentrate on the fact that what is the airline, what is the Starline project itself, the implications of it once it is actually successful, to have two different capsule to take it. This has been a very reliant system which Russia has been using for a very, very long time. The Soyuz rocket has been very, very successful, and at one point of time between 2011 and 2019, for 8 years, this was the only way to go to the ISS and come back. And its capsule has been always been generally considered very safe. And very rarely we've seen any form of accidents here. On the other hand, Dragon X, SpaceX has been, as it is, also been very reliant. But that is the NASA is more inclined to go towards Lockheed Martin, Boeing rather than SpaceX, because SpaceX becomes a purely private organization. Lockheed Martin is also related to the military angle within the $6 billion which they spend on their military budget. So there's a little bit of a bias towards Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Let's see if that works or not. Atlas 5 as of right now is used from different things for basic satellite re-entry and entry into the orbit. Let us see if it will work with Starline or not. This is the basic point which I wanted to make here. Different terminologies in the news, important. Thereafter, we have a very interesting article, something like coming out of how we watch movies related to RAW, which is the Research and Analysis Wing of Indian Intelligence. And RAW has been in the news for quite a lot of things. Generally because it has been glorified and has been shown in multiple contexts in different forms of movies. But also RAW has been now associated with multiple extrajudicial killings in multiple countries now. The list has been increasing. Pakistan obviously is always on our list, and the Pakistani terrorists deserved or got what they deserved in that regard. And thereafter, recently the US, Australia, Canada, and the UK, that was a very long list of countries, has now accused the RAW of operating in these countries and killing certain men who are related to either the Khalistani movement. Pakistan is related to larger ISI terrorism in India, but US, Australia, Canada, and UK, all three, there is a connection, which is the Khalistan movement. We already know Khalistan, which is related to the separatist movement, which was inspired in Punjab itself, has now exported itself to Canada. Canada has now become a safe haven with Trudeau's government basically protecting them in proper sense. There is no second doubt. There is no doubt with regards to the fact that the Trudeau government is working to protect the Khalistanis. We have our diplomats being harassed in the US, harassed in Canada, and there is already a diplomatic detente, as it is called, between Canada and India as of right now. But what is new is the Australian connection and the US connection. The US connection is the most recent. And see, RAW has been doing this for maybe decades now, which is intelligence agencies working in different other countries, targeting nationals which are considered to be seditious or anti-nationals, and killing people who are related to for example, issues terrorist activities in their countries. So let's be very, very honest. One of the most glorified extrajudicial killing in this world is of Osama bin Laden being killed in Pakistan via the US Marines. So let's be very honest. Yes, Osama is Osama, but the fact of the matter was that was an extrajudicial killing where they entered into Pakistan, killed somebody, and went back. And that is not overt, that is not an implicit one, that's an overt operation. What the RAW does, what the ISI does, what the Mossad does, what a lot of different, the CIA does, is these forms of activities only. They are known for that. Now, when it goes successfully and nobody gets detected, it is considered the best way. However, in these countries, certain connections have emerged. Now, I'll take it on case basis that what are they basically pointing out. So, the RAW agency has now been linked to the US, Canada, Australia, Pakistan, UK, and Khalistani concept itself. Now, there are 3 to 4 basic allegations. This is Pannun, and he's the one who's basically orchestrating most of the Khalistani activity in the US. He's a Canadian citizen and is operating in Canada also. There was an assassination attempt on him in the US, which unfortunately did not go as per plan, and he survived. And now the American agencies are looking into previous chief of RAW, Samant Goel's approval and involvement in the assassination attempt of Pannun. This is the one which never went through properly. He still survives, he still is breathing, and he is the one who basically was the person who in a way patronized and allowed for multiple Indian diplomats getting harassed by Khalistani terrorists. On the other hand, the other 2 are successful ones, wherein we have the Canadians as of right now arresting 3 people, Indian nationals, in the killings of Nijjar. Now, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed in Canada. He again got what he deserved. But the fact is now the mounted Canadian police has arrested 3 Indian nationals, and now they're basically checking the connections between the 3 nationals and Indian officials. And here itself also there was a what we call as merchant. There was a businessman, Gupta, who was involved in what we call as commissioning the hitman to kill him. That connection has been found, and therefore there are a lot of interesting questions which have been asked in this case. This case has been properly we will call it a successful one, but with this new development, there's a lot of questions which have now been asked in that regard. So there is a little bit of question that are these 3 men related to RAW, though the RAW will always deny, but there is now some connection which has been developed. On the other hand, when we talk about Australia, RAW has now been linked to some of the intelligence or nest of spies which have been found in Australia, working to make sure that Khalistani separatists are not successful in what they want to achieve. And Pakistani forces already argue that multiple terrorists have died within Pakistan in unforeseen incidents which have been done by India. And last but not the least, another new allegation which has come in is that there was another Khalistani terrorist called Avtar Singh Khanda. He was killed in UK. He was not killed in a way. He died through certain poisoning, leukemia. And it has been believed that again the Indian intelligence agency has been involved. Now, obviously, you don't need to learn their names. We should not glorify their names by learning their names itself. But Khanda, you have Pannun and Nijjar. These are 3 people who have been in the news with regards to Khalistan. He still is alive, unfortunately. On the other hand, you have Nijjar and Khanda being dead, and Australia, Pakistan, UK, US and Canada now arguing that India has been operating in all of these countries to target these Khalistani terrorists in that regard. Now the question becomes, which is that has this strained the relationship with our allies? Now, to be very, very honest, the India-Pakistan relationship is already over when it comes to diplomatic channels until and unless they do not stop terrorism. There was an attack on an army convoy just yesterday by terrorists. Till all of this is being done, let's be very honest, we are not going to engage with Pakistan. So Pakistan, are we entering and killing terrorists which are working against Indian interest? Very good. If Raw is doing that, I don't say it is doing it. Allegedly, if Raw is doing it, any natural force or even a Pakistani is killing their own terrorist. Whoever is doing it, God bless them. End of story. Pakistan relationship as it is not salvageable until unless Pakistan does not change its basic understanding towards India and how they are funding state-sponsored terrorism. So Pakistan relationship, we don't care. Are terrorists being killed in mysterious circumstances within Pakistan? Sure. Is India involved? Maybe. Should we be involved? Maybe no. Are we involved? Maybe yes or no. And the idea is, should India be linked to it? Pakistan will link anything and everything with us. Are they being killed? Is that a good or a bad thing? Good thing. In the larger context, Pakistan-India relationship, all of these terrorists being dead is a very good thing. So whoever is doing it, Raw, ISI, Pakistani people themselves realizing that they have to change their understanding towards India. And if you've seen recently their opposition leader talking in the parliament, the Pakistani parliament, and even the Punjab CM, she's a woman who has got elected as the Punjab CM. She's been talking about India. She's been talking about the ties with India. She's been talking about the larger diasporic population. She's been talking about Punjab and Punjab linkages. And therefore, let's be very honest, Pakistan relationship is beyond salvageable as of right now until unless Pakistan does not changes understanding. So this relationship, we really don't care. Extrajudicial killings are happening. Sure. When Pakistani terrorists, when properly ISI sponsored terrorists kill our soldiers, when it is not unjustifiable there or justifiable there, then therefore all of this is justified. Let's not get into this. Now, second is the relationship with Canada. Now, when we talk about Canada, as of right now, Canada relationship is already extremely strained. And Trudeau has shown that he's not going to work against these Khalistani terrorists. In a way, he's one of the major vote bank is actually the Khalistani separatist movement within Canada. And therefore, Canada relationship again is as of right now in a detente, which is in a period of coldness, in a period of what we call as thaw, in which we are basically not engaging with them. Diplomatic tussle has already happened. So therefore, this relationship is already strained. Again, Canada needs us more than we need Canada, and therefore they would have to change their basic understanding. Though there's a very big diasporic population in Canada, which has turned out to be a little bit problematic, and their safety is a little bit of a concern. Recently, there are also multiple reports coming out of Canada that a lot of students are not able to find jobs there. Canadian unemployment rate has gone to the highest, with highest fertility rate because of diasporic population. And Canada, therefore, is seeing a lot of what we call as unemployment, and its degrees are becoming more and more redundant. So this relationship, again, like the Pakistani one, the second ranking problematic one. Now, when it comes to the US, the UK and Australia, these allies have allegedly said a lot of things about us. But let's be very honest, Israel and the US have already done such activities across different countries whilst quoting what is called as the UN Charter on Self-Defense. So it is believed that as matter of self-defense, we also have the right, if it turns out to be true, as of right now, if it turns out to be true, it is the UN Charter of Self-Defense which gives us the right to act against people who are working against our interest. However, when it comes to the External Affairs Ministry, it has very simply said that the US allegation, the Washington Post allegation, is unwarranted and unsubstantiated, and extrajudicial killing is not a government policy in India. We believe in the due process of law, as the British used to believe in due process of law during the colonial period. We are really true to the due process of law, the rule of law, unlike these hypocrites, the Americans and the British, using it as per their own convenience. And except for Pakistan and Canada, as of right now, the relationships are in a way in the right space. In a way, the right space. These are all allegations. Now, the question which comes out of this is, America has given a 3-point agenda to us that if this is proved, the Panum case is proved, they want firstly a public apology to operate in America. Second, they want a proper inquiry into this, and thereafter a legal redressal and a legal framework within India to prosecute the people who were involved in the assassination, the failed assassination of Manmohan. Again, first this has to be proved. The idea of the matter is very, very simple. It is very easy. Now let's go into the simple, straightforward aspect, which is it is very easy to say that RAW did it. It is very easy to say that these people are working against India, so India is involved. All of this needs to be proved, substantiated, and all linkages need to be given in due process and due evidences. Is the RAW involved? Maybe. Is it involved? And should it not be involved? That is the basic job of the RAW itself to operate, and what is called espionage is not something which India only does. America, CIA, it is done by everybody. And last but not the least, which is a very important point you need to understand, is these people are harboring in countries which know, or by the belief that they will never be prosecuted, they will never be targeted. So there needs to be a sense of understanding, there needs to be a sense of fear which needs to be in these people, that even if they are operating, see, the Khalistan separatist movement has shown its ugly face in the past 1 year, and we have seen the Indian consulate from Indian diplomats to previously in the 1980s, we had terrorist activities with regards to bombing of an Air India flight itself. The Canadians never did anything at that point of time. So we can't expect anything from them right now itself. US, UK, Australia relationship should remain within the space it is. Let us see how these things go forward. Are they substantiated? Is there anything to prove? If not, as of right now, is the assassination of these terrorists a bad thing for India? Being done by anybody and everybody, it is a good thing. To be very blunt in saying it, Pakistan extrajudicial killing, very good. The separatists being targeted, very good. Is India doing it? I don't know. I'm not related to the RAW, and I have nothing to do with the External Affairs Ministry. So let us see it on face value. Let's be very honest. It's very easy to blame India. It's very easy to blame India. I want evidence. You want evidence. Let the Americans prove that there was a certain Indian angle into it. Yes, there's a businessman involved. Yes, there's a certain what we call as correspondence. The idea of the matter is, if a question comes in the examination with regards to is extrajudicial killing straining the relationship between India and its allies, the answer is that all of these, now please listen to me, all of these things are unsubstantiated basic allegations. Until unless proved, it is not to be found, we are not to be found guilty of any of these things, and therefore the strain is because of fear mongering. It is because of allegations made by Pakistan and Canada, and therefore if we have a good relationship of transparency where both parties believe that extrajudicial killing should not be government policy, therefore the relationship will remain intact. America cannot be prosecuting us, cannot be arguing against us whilst it does the same, which is basically hypocrisy. America did it in a more explicit manner, which was in a way told to the world with all glory that we entered Pakistan and killed Osama bin Laden. That was an extrajudicial killing only. So it can't be that you glorify what you do, and then if we have done something, if substantially proved, it is something which has to be condemned. The UN Charter has been used for self-defense. What is called the UN Charter of Self-Defense has been used by Israel, has been used by US, has been used by UK in multiple cases. And I think we are also entitled to our own national security. And nobody is going to actually say that this was something which was undeserved on these people. All of these men are acting against in the national interest of India, and therefore anybody who is working against the national interest of India is an enemy of India, and therefore we as a nation have all the right, our sovereignty allows us to act against them, and therefore we should have the freedom to do that. As I said, if this was something which we started, then maybe it was a problem. Let's be very honest, the West has no modus operandi to say that we are the first to do this, and more than that, multiple things like this has happened previously in India itself, in multiple other countries, by state sponsored killing, extrajudicial killing by the Americans, by the Israelis, by the UK, French. So hypocrisy is not something we expect, but the West is hypocrite. So let's be very honest, if this is happening, the basic point is you can't say in the examination that all of this is done by the RAW. it is an allegation. Until proved, it is an allegation. Therefore, is it straining the relationship? Relationships which are already strained cannot be salvaged. Maybe we need to be a little bit more understanding and have to be more what we call as accommodative of the what America or Australia or UK is saying. But again, unsubstantiated allegations are there on anything and everything, and anything can happen. So that ways, let's keep it simple. Allegations have to be proved. Raw is not doing it until proved. Okay. With this, let's move to a bird flu, H5N1 avian variety of flu, which is now becoming a point of concern, a major point of concern in that regard. See, bird flu is not something new. For the past 10 years, we've been talking about H5N1, H1N1. The H5N1 influenza, the bird flu as it is called informally, has been in the news quite a lot. And with regards to Kerala, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Peninsula states, even Haryana, Punjab, there is a lot of concern with regards to bird flu spreading within the poultry industry and the meat industry, and it could and it had a lot of impact on it generally. Now, previously, if you've seen our CNAs, you would know that we have talked about H5N1 becoming more serious. And the reason for that was that H5N1 has now seen to migrate. It has migrated, the virus has migrated from birds, which is avian variety of a virus, into mammals. And what is more concerning is that it is now spreading amongst cattle, are getting affected properly. But there is news that from cattle, it has also gone to cats. Farm cats have now seen the virus spreading to them. 8 to 9 cases are there. We already know that it has gone into sea lions, it has spread into sea lions. Plus, we already know that it has gone into seals. And we know that it has gone into maritime or marine animals also. The same H5N1 influenza. So now this means that this virus is migrating. It has not stayed within the avian variety, but has now migrated into mammals, cattle, cats, sea lions, seals. Multiple cases in Peru, Chile, wherein we have seen the marine animals getting affected. In Russia, we have seen seals getting affected. And in America, as of right now, there's a major crisis vis-a-vis cats and cattle. Cattle is the more important one because being a beef eating in the industry, very, very major industry in America, and the meat industry in America being very substantial, cattle spreading of avian variety is problematic. What is even more concerning is, and that is why this is in the news, that 20% of grocery milk, meaning milk supplied via the meat industry, via the animal husbandry industry in that regard, the dairy industry, 20% grocery milk has now seen, if you do the genetic, if you are doing the analysis of that milk, in 20% of that milk, the virus has been found. It is not been still substantiated that it is basically a live virus or the genomic, what we call as the genetic markers of the avian variety H5N1 has been found. But in 20% of grocery milk, there has been the virus has been detected. This is a point of concern, which means that the cattle which is getting affected by the virus, if they are being milked, they are transferring the virus through that milk into the grocery variety of milk also, even after pasteurization. Even after pasteurization, there is 20% genetic markers of H5N1 in this milk. So now, as of right now, the H5N1 virus has moved beyond just the avian varieties. It has moved into cattle, it has moved into cats, it has moved into marine animals. Now it has migrated into the milk which is being produced out of the same industry. We have already seen 3 cases of humans getting affected with very mild symptoms in America from the cattle itself. So now the point is, this is something which needs to be taken into account properly. If we can't learn from the COVID-19 saga, that is a problem. If we learn something from the COVID-19 saga is we can't take viruses so leniently and we have to take them seriously. Because the way this is spreading, this is basically like a pandemic within the cattle industry, within the animal kingdom right now. Because it is spreading like wildfire. And the problem is it is migrating from species to species and doesn't really matter how it is spreading. Now, there are three questions which need to be answered and are still unanswered with regards to one more important finding. See, the Americans have been basically been able to zero down that in 2023, there was a single point entry of this virus into the cattle industry, which is into cows. There was a single point industry. There was a single point entry in 2023. Now the question is, nobody knows how this happened, meaning that it was an avian variety of virus. It remained within the avian variety for years, but it migrated. Now, how did it migrate? That question is still not answered. How did it migrate? This question is still not answered, that how did it migrate? First. Second, what they've seen is that there is a reverse spillover which is happening. There is a reverse spillover which is happening, which is the concept that it should have only gone from bird to mammal or to cattle. But as of right now, there is a reverse spillover. So from birds, it can go to mammals, but in multiple cases, these mammals and specifically cattle have spread this virus to the bird also. This is the forward linkage. This is the reverse linkage. And reverse linkage has also been found. And therefore, it now becomes even more dangerous because if we don't understand this virus properly, we will never be able to understand that how is this reverse linkage happening and is it mutating at a pace which we can't control only. So the three questions which remain unanswered are very simple and straightforward. The first one being that the route of mammalian transmission, remains unclear on how it went into cattle herds, with speculation to include was it contaminated food, was it contaminated equipment, or was it airborne transmission from a bird into a cattle. First. Second, on how the virus has evaded detection within cattle for the first 7 to 8 months is also a question. But last but not the least is the reverse spillover event from cattle to poultry has suggested that this necessitates a more thorough analysis of how this virus is mutating. Because as of right now, if you can understand this, as of right now, this H5N1 used to be just birds. From birds, it has spread into cattle. It has also spread into what we call as marine animals. From marine animals, it has impacted humans. From cattle, it has impacted humans. It at the same point of time is also creating a reverse linkage with the birds. Further, the marine animals, we don't know how they are connected to the birds itself. How is the cattle affecting the humans? Is it actually a direct transfer between the bird and the human itself? And how humans are getting affected by this is not known. Now, this is the web which is getting created where more research needs to be done on H5N1 because this could be the next pandemic in making. Because the first pandemic did impact dogs and cats, which is COVID-19 did used to impact dogs more than cats. But the fact is, this is an animal-based transmission. It can impact the food security of multiple countries and also the dairy industry, the meat industry, the poultry industry. And therefore, H5N1 needs to be properly understood and analyzed. Because if we are not going to do that, this is again us being complacent and looking at the disaster in making and not doing anything. While COVID-19 came as a bigger shock, We still don't know what is the Chinese connection to it and what is the bat connection. We know that it came from the bat, but what is it is the Wuhan market itself, it is the lab in China. Let's not go into that. But the point of the matter is that this is properly there for the past 10 years. If you're still allowing something like this to happen without without a proper research in the virology of this, then we are being complacent, and therefore we need to learn from our mistakes and do a thorough analysis of this. America is the most affected. India is seeing multiple cases in only poultry as of right now, but with a very substantial population of cattle in India and very close interaction between cattle and rural population, this could be something which could impact India in a larger context. We have to make sure that this does not happen, and we make sure that we will analyze H5N1 properly. With this, let's move to the smaller topics, but let me summarize what I've done. The first topic we discussed, Starline. So remember, Starline is the program, or Starliner or is the program of the Boeing crew module, which is going to take astronauts into the orbit, into the ISS, to and fro from the ISS. With Starliner project becoming successful, with Dragon module itself, US will become the first country to have 2 modules to take their astronauts into the ISS. Thereafter, we discussed the raw connection with the different killings which are happening across the world. Is it straining our diplomatic relationship? Maybe. In certain cases, it is already a gone case, but in certain relationships, we have to be a little bit more transparent. We have to be accommodative. And last but not the least, we've discussed H5N1 now becoming a serious threat for us, and therefore it is important that we take care of this properly. After this, let's look at a small topic, which is a logistical agreement with the UK. So recently there was a case in which a warship, a UK warship, was retrofitted and repaired in India by Larsen and Toubro in the Katapulia, what we call as a shipyard itself. So the Royal Indian Littoral Response Group South, the LRGS, was on visit to India in that regard, and it has been retrofitted. It has been given certain upgradations and has been in a way repaired in India. And for something like this to happen, you need a logistical support agreement, which is not in place as of right now. India did it out of goodwill, but now the UK is considering signing a military to military logistical support agreement, which could be a very important step with the UK and India relationships and defense ties. Another NATO member trying to have a good relationship vis-a-vis logistics and military is a good indication for India. And let us see how this goes, where it goes. But India has been helping a lot of different NATO members in making sure that their basic equipment is either repaired, we're giving them fuel, and this is leading to, we have a logistical support agreement with the US, but the UK is now considering one, and maybe for the Indo-Pacific, this is going to be very significant in that regard. A small topic, but an interesting one. Now, the last topic is a very, very, very beautifully written study and article, which is leprosy and red squirrels. See, now for centuries, leprosy has been a very big problem. Leprosy is a disease which transcends the poor, the what we call as the rich. It is something which used to be a very big epidemic, at least epidemical level, what we call as disease, which used to spread in India, in Europe. And there, for a very long time, it was believed that leprosy, the bacteria, which is the Cyanobacter what we call as Cyanobacter leprae, which is Mycobacterium leprae, which is a larger group. Larger group is the Cyanobacterium. Within that, you have the Mycobacterium leprae. This, it was believed for a very, very long time, used to be a human-specific disease, which is that we were the host and we used to spread it to the other humans also. However, maybe in the past 5 to 6 decades, there was a new connections which were found that within chimpanzees and squirrels, there was a chance that this bacteria could survive, and therefore we were not the only host of this bacteria. Now, the study which we are talking about is a study which has happened in an English city of Winchester. An archaeological site has been found in Winchester, which goes back to medieval England itself. And a red squirrel connection has been found. Now, as I said, for thousands of years, we thought that M. leprae was something which used to only impact humans. We were the hosts, but later, most recently, red squirrel chimpanzees have also been found. Now, how does archaeology make our understanding better? Is because when the study was conducted on the burials which have been found in this town of Winchester. Winchester is a good example also because it was related to the fur trade, and a lot of people here also had squirrels as their pets. And because squirrel fur was used in the lining of clothes, this was the right space to get this evidence from. Now, what has been found is that the strain of virus which impacts humans the most, that strain of virus actually is closest in the red squirrel, which used to be found in the what we call as Winchester sector. Now, this basically tells us that maybe how the plague was spread by rats, red squirrels were the ones who were spreading leprosy also. This is something which was never properly established. We were never able to understand this form of connection, and we used to think that it was a human to human transfer. Now, this is where history, archaeology, modern sciences come together, and this could be a breakthrough in understanding in parts of Africa and Asia where still leprosy is there. What is the interaction of red squirrels with this virus, with this bacteria? So, therefore, this study, which in the science section of the newspaper, in a way has changed the understanding of us understanding leprosy generally, its spread, and its human to human and animal to human and host understanding. Therefore, this is where we are now still pushing the boundaries of medicine into new spaces to get to know about different new concepts in that regard. So before we go to the mains question, what have we done? We've understood 5 very important articles, and I will write all of the important words which are important for you. Your starliner, Boeing, very, very important. You need to know Atlas 5, a joint rocket between Boeing and Lockheed Martin. You also need to discuss or understand what is called as Dragon X and SpaceX relationship. You should also know the concept of Soyuz rocket, which is used by the Russians. Further, we need to also know H5N1 and how it is spreading, and a very important word which is used, reverse spillover. And the concept of reverse spillover means from the cattle to the bird itself, and the questions which are related to its origin. And thereafter, we've also understood the concept of raw and how raw has been related to certain, have been allegedly linked to certain killings, extrajudicial killings which have been happening in certain countries. You should know the countries: UK, US, Canada, and Australia. You can see something which is connecting all of these countries is the very high diasporic population which is there of Indians in this country. And let us add Pakistan into this to make the list complete. Over and above this, a logistical agreement between India and UK is on the cards. And more than that, we also have a very interesting case of leprosy, red squirrel hosts concept, where leprosy, the bacteria could also be linked to the host was not just humans, it was other animals also, which we were able to decide. However, we've now been able to decide through this journal, Current Biology, the journal article, it points out that on the basis of the human remains and squirrel samples which have been found in Winchester in UK, which is a very important point for fur trade itself, it has now been decided and has come to the conclusion that squirrels were the closest host to the humans. Therefore, red squirrels could have acted like what we call as spreading agents, as hosts of spreading leprosy across the European sector, and something like this could also be found in India. Therefore, the connection would have become even more strong. With this, let's look at the mains question. And you have two very interesting, one GS paper 3, one GS paper 2. You have the Starliner program will open new avenues for space exploration. straightforward question, just based on the idea of how this could be a game changer for the ISS, as it is the International Space Station will be decommissioned in the next decade or so, and a new space station will be developed. So therefore, these modules are very important to supply equipment and understandings. Thereafter, this is GS paper. GS paper 3. This is GS paper 2, internal security. You can take it for 2 and 3 both, which is extrajudicial killings have strained India's relationship with some of its allies. Do you agree? Now you can again write the answers to these questions. I've seen you've been writing them in the chat box. You can always write it in the comment section. We'll be happy to evaluate it for you. Thank you so much for your patience. This was the 5 interesting things we wanted to discuss for today for the Hindu analysis. Remember, at 6 o'clock, I'll be taking a session on history static questions on the Unacademy platform itself. This special session, link is given in the description box. At 7:30, Sarmad Sir is going to take a marathon on polity questions for 2024. Anybody who's preparing for June 2024, it is going to be very, very important for you. For 2025, you will get a feel of what it means. You should, as 2025, 25, 26, 27, or till 2030, whatever your age is, you should become part of these sessions for Conquer Prelims, be it static or the current affairs one, because they give you a feel. And as it is for 2025 and 2026, the current affairs and static does not change too much. Last but not the least, again, the description has the link for it. If you still can't find it, use the Telegram channel, join the Telegram channel. You will get all the links there. After this session is over, you will get 5 questions on the Telegram channel with regards to this session. The 5 topics we've discussed, 5 prelims related questions, so that we have done the mains questions. You can practice the prelims question also. Remember, 7th May is the last date for our very, very important discount, which we are having right now. The Unacademy subscription for 15 months is at the lowest possible at 24,999. For 24,999, you can get a 15-month subscription, which is 54 rupees per day, and you can get the best educators, the best education, and make sure that you clear this examination in your first attempt. With this, I would like to end the session. I will see you tomorrow again. Now with the Monday newspaper, we'll have the editorials. Let us see what are the issues which are going to be in the news. Thank you, take care, and bye-bye.